Hello, CanJam, not here, watching at home. We wish you were here, but if you aren't here, we're here for you. I have the one and only Justin Weber right here with me from ampsandsound, and we're excited to be here. How's it going, brother?
Loving it, actually. First time I have my wife and daughter here, and they're working the booth right now instead of me.
That's nice.
So if you want a 10-year-old to sell you a tube amp, this is the moment.
10-year-old selling a Nautilus, and she'll probably be able to sell it better than I would, so that's pretty awesome. So talk to us a little bit about your newest Jinx tube amplifier a little bit.
So the Jinx is meant to be sort of a counterpoint to the Kenzie within my own product line. So the idea is to have something that isn't within my own house sound. So, you know, with my collaborations in the past, especially with Zach, you know, I saw the importance of having a more neutral voicing to things. Not everybody likes it as thick as I do.
Sure.
And so the Jinx was meant to give you the ability to roll really old tubes that are really inexpensive, really accessible, but yet give you a modern sound.
Right.
So the idea of being able to buy tubes that everybody can afford, you know, that are 50 years old, that you didn't, you know, for 200 or 300 bucks, you can buy a full tube set for the whole amp that's 50 to 70 years old, and yet it still has a more modern voicing.
Right.
So it'll pair well with almost everything when you want a little bit more neutrality, more detail, a little bit more space.
Right.
So all the things that you might like in a pendant sash Lilu, but being able to roll tubes easier.
More affordably, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That sounds like it's going to be a good reference for a lot of people then.
Yeah, and it becomes, you know, it's priced really similarly to the Kenzie, so it's a question of choice. What do you actually want to hear?
Does it also do speakers and headphones, or is it solely headphones? Or
just headphones? The real trick of the Jinx is that it can roll 4 different kinds of rectifiers.
Awesome.
So you can go from being really, really powerful and having a really forward sound to really, really wet. And so, like, there's a tube called a 5Y3. It goes back to like the 30s, and you can get a 5Y3, plug it right in, and it's going to work perfect.
Sick.
And that's super cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Awesome. And as far as the wood bases, what wood options does it have as far as its base and housing?
Typically, we're still doing walnut with ebony corners, but if someone wants flat black,
okay.
You know, I'll give someone a choice. Well, let me say this differently. If someone says, hey, can I have flat black, there's no problem making it flat black for them. But by default, it's walnut and ebony.
Okay. Which walnut's beautiful. Walnut's very beautiful.
Yeah, it's an Eastern walnut, or otherwise known as American walnut. It looks great, but I choose black.
Yeah, of course. Of course. You got the Johnny Cash theme going on. I get it.
So like black on black works for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want it to be available to people without an upcharge.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So you heard that. So if you're interested and you want black, you have that available to you.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the Red October. I think it was released sometime this year, and you've brought it around. How has that response been to that 300B? It's one of my favorite tubes is a 300B.
So the Red October has been sort of overwhelmingly positive, and then it's CanJam SoCal is really fun because you have a lot of Nautilus owners coming in and then listening to the Red October, and I think that, you know, rather than saying it's a flagship over and above the Nautilus, I think that they're both at parity with each other. So the difference is, do you want that intimacy in your mid-range? Do you want that really dense mid-range? That's a Nautilus question. Where if you're more like, I want soundscape, I want to hear micro details. Things that might whisper to me if you're having overtones in mid-range you can't always hear. And so the Red October becomes that counterpoint. The other narrative, though, is, you know, ampsandsound is an American company, American sourced parts, American manufacturing, and being able to run an American-built tube, i.e. the Western Electric 300B, is a really interesting narrative.
Yeah.
Because you can buy the rectifiers inexpensively, and you can buy an input tube relatively inexpensively, but then being able to buy an American source tube. So the whole thing, soup to nuts, being Americans.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a nationalist, it's just, it's a cool story.
It's a great story, and it's good for our country. We are Americans, so there's nothing wrong with supporting American.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's a great tube, too. I mean, you got a 5-year warranty on that tube, I believe, from Western Electric, which what other tube manufacturers do that? Not many. So you got even if you listen on average like 10,000 hours a year, which is probably above average, you got over 50,000 hours that Western Electric is guaranteeing that tube is going to last. That's pretty damn good.
Well, the other part of it, I mean, like, so I had a customer who owns a Nautilus and is really thinking about buying a Red October.
Sure.
And yesterday we had 2 Red Octobers out, one with Western Electric and NOS tubes, and one with stock tubes.
Right.
And they were both really impressive, but everybody could see a real clear differentiation between what the better tubes got you.
Right.
And it was asked, what's different? And I had to really think about it. And I said, it's not that the colors are different, the colors and the tone of the music. It's that the glass is clearer.
Right.
There's less artifacts in the music. And so the details present with a more trueness to them.
Right.
It's a hard thing to understand, but yeah, I think that like the stock tubes, as good as they are, have an opaqueness to them, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the case with the new KT88s, though. I actually think the new KT88s and the ones like we supply with the Nautilus are about as good as you can get.
Are those JJ or what?
Yeah, they're JJs.
Okay, cool.
Or we also use Softtech, which is the same thing like Audio Research will use.
I love Softtech, yeah. JJs I like too, but Softtechs, I like those a lot also.
But I will say, like, I think that the KT88 and the JJs and the Softtechs, as an example, are as good an example of a KT88 that exists, and is only maybe marginally less good than an NOS version, which costs 5 times as much per tube. Right. I can't say that's the truth for a 300B. I think the 300B new production tubes are very good, but they are nowhere near as good as the top-rated 300B tubes.
There's a huge gap in difference. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had on demo a pair of the Western Electric 300Bs for quite a while from one of our audio buddies, and there was an issue with one of the tubes for sure, and he ended up having to send it back and replace it, but it didn't always display itself. So when I did hear it in its truest form, it was probably one of my favorite tubes I've ever heard. So, take that for what it's worth. But the 300B is also just a unique sound.
Yes.
There's something special about vocals with the 300B, and then the sound stage or soundscape, like you said, the space that it creates and the air on that is pretty spectacular.
For sure, yeah. Completely.
Yeah, I was able to listen this morning a little bit to the Red October with Dan Clark Audio's Expanse, and that was a very enjoyable, impressive experience. I mean, it's always tough when you're at a show, but it was not quite a full house yet, so I was able to really get some time with it, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, like what I'd say about the Expanse specifically is, he may call it an open back. I'd say it's almost a semi-open back.
Right.
It actually, thank goodness, filters out some of the room.
It does, yeah, I noticed that.
Which is, in my mind, actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
But it's by far his finest tuning. It's his best headphone he's made.
I actually, with a limited time, that's my first impression too as well. I think it's his best headphone. I mean, I'm gonna get a review copy of it before I leave CanJam and do a full flavor review on it, but I feel like just my initial impressions, I just reviewed his Ether 2, I reviewed his Stealth, which are 2 of his most popular headphones. Actually, I've reviewed, I think, almost every headphone he's made. And as much as I've loved all of his headphones, just the limited time I had with it this morning, I was like, I think he really nailed it with this headphone. And of course, your amplifier, the complementary of the 2 together, really bring it up a notch. Cool. So Nautilus, talk to us about Nautilus. So Nautilus, God, it still feels weird saying this because it was like only maybe a year or 2 or less, or maybe a year and a half, I reviewed the Nautilus, and now it's like the old kid on the block, but it's not really the old kid. It's still the really popular badass tube amplifier.
The thing about our company in general is that we are always trying to improve things, and we always find little efficiencies. So, there's a belief in what's called the Toyota method of manufacturing, and it's this idea of successive improvement, that if you can find 1% improvement a day.
Sure.
So we're always trying to find ways to eke out a little bit better performance.
Right.
And I think the Nautiluses show that. Our finishes have gotten a little bit more sophisticated. Our wiring is a little bit more enhanced. Everything's better.
Right.
We don't just let it. We don't let a product just stand.
Yeah, you want to constantly improve, so you can keep taking it to the next level.
100%.
So you don't have to tell us if you can't share it, but what do you see maybe coming next down the pipeline for Amps and Sound?
So
give us hints if you don't want to share fully, but you know.
No. So we just came out with a preamp, and we have a booster box, which helps. The booster box helps anybody who has an existing Amps and Sound amplifier find 20% better performance.
Oh, that's very cool.
Because most digital sources don't give the gain function that we would like them to. And so by giving a pre that gives you a step up of 2, a gain of 2, you actually get a more dynamic signal.
Awesome.
And, you know, it's a modest, you know, I think it's $900 on the site, and any amplifier that you have, unless you're having a $6,000 hollow May, will benefit from having that on the front end. And our pre, we just came out with a pre, and it's fantastic. We're going to be at Capital Audio Fest with our pre, and our 2-channel line is going to be at Capital. A year from now, we're going to have a tube pre.
Okay, cool.
And
that's exciting.
You know, so we're giving ourselves a year of development for that.
Sure.
Which is a long time for us.
Yeah, but you want to get it right, so that makes sense.
I don't foresee a lot of changes in our product lines, in the sense of, like, at this point, the Nautiluses and Red Octobers are packing 4 chokes, so we have 10 transformers in them.
Right.
There are some side pivots that would be interesting to do, and they would be done on a limited run basis, because they're a more of a niche market question. So, like, there will be a 2A3 version of a Red October for those who wish it, but it'll probably be 10 people who want a 2A3.
Right. And
and then there will be a 12 to 15 watt version of a Nautilus for those that want a big gun, a bigger gun.
Wow, that's beefy. And
we have it.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
No, we have
it's there. It's ready. It
exists. It can be shown.
Okay. It's not available yet, but it's.
Well, so as an example, the Expanse, the Sisvara, and the Abyss, if I doubled the power, would be able to say thank you for it without issue. There are not as many headphones that can accept that much power without
blowing to pieces.
Right, and so, but for, like, with the introduction of the Expanse, it's like maybe it's time to come out with the 12 watt Nautilus.
Right. All right, let me check the chat. Hey, Christopher, what's up, man? Anybody else, if you have questions for Justin too, just feel free to drop any questions in here. I'll check over and monitor every now and then. So also, I have to give you some congrats. You made stereo files most recommended for the Bigger Ben.
Yep.
I thought that was awesome. I always love when I'm reading my stereo file, because I'm a speaker nerd like you are, and I'm just reading. I'm like, hey, that's Justin, Bigger Ben. So props for that, brother. That's awesome. So big props. I mean, the Bigger Ben, actually, it's one of the, I think, the only amps I haven't heard of yours, and it's always positive. Like, that's well loved by everybody. So is it still popular with the Nautilus and everything else?
The Mogwai SE is sort of the amp that sells at the greatest rate of frequency. So the two that sell the most often are the Kenzie and the Mogwai SE. Okay. After that, it becomes the Nautilus, and if someone can't afford a Nautilus but wanted the Transformers, the Bigger Ben.
Okay. So it sits in that sweet spot basically for you, where you're getting not the level of the Nautilus, but you're getting a sound similar to that of the Nautilus for a more affordable price.
Yes.
Okay.
And the efficiencies of that are that, you know, the power supply is a singular power supply, and it's done on a circuit board, but we're fanatical with our wiring.
Right. Yeah, you put pictures up, you show how quality it is, so which a lot of manufacturers won't even do that. So.
Right, but I mean, like, we're fanatical with our wiring.
Yep.
And for every amplifier, whether you're buying our least expensive or our most expensive, we show that level of detail.
Yep.
But the Bigger Ben lets you roll the widest variety. You know, the Bigger Ben and the Mogwai SE lets you roll tubes. You know, the question then becomes, do you want that bigger transformer?
Right.
And the Bigger Ben gives you the bigger transformer and some convenience features that the SE doesn't give you.
Right.
So the SE gives you the taste of the good life. The Bigger Ben gives you the whole cake.
Right. I like that. That's a good analogy. Okay, cool. So let's shift gears a little bit. So of the stuff that you have got to hear or want to hear before the end of the show, what are you most excited about from headphones? Maybe the headphone land.
Sure. So things that I have heard that I thought were really, really interesting. And I sound like a shill or cliche to say it, but because they're the newer things.
Right, sure.
Look, I still think from a value proposition, the HD 650 is like, if you don't own one, you should.
Oh, it's a great headphone.
As a backup, you should own an HD 650.
Yep. 600 super popular too. Either of those two, if you like different sound. Yeah.
Right. And I think the Sundara and the Sundara Closed, like the Sundara Closed is the best value in a modern planner that exists. Under $500 for a closed back planner is an insanely good deal, and is a highlight.
Right.
Because you have to think about like the value proposition it offers you.
Yep.
But like the flagships, I mean, like Zach came out with his newest, without telling anybody, came out with his newest planner, and it's amazing.
Caldera, right? I believe
Caldera.
It's called. Yeah.
It has an 80 millimeter driver.
I know.
It has the driver's like this.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's approaching Odyssey level size drivers. Yeah.
I think Odyssey's 55 millimeters, so it's 55 to 65.
Depends on their higher level ones are larger, but yeah.
It's a huge driver, and it was nice to hear Zach say, like, I didn't use other people's OEM sources.
Sure.
He actually created his own path forward.
Yeah.
So and then you get his woodwork.
That's beautiful woodwork, always.
So, I mean, like, I appreciate the novelness of that.
I keep trying to get over there to just give a quick listen in between, like, little breaks. There's no room. His room is packed, like, just packed.
The sleeper, I mean, like, they drop it 2 days before the show, the FoCal, like, that's a flex. When you can drop your flagship 2 days before a show.
Yep.
And for the FoCal, it's like what the 800 was, where it was this benchmark, but it had problems.
Right.
And then the 800S solved 90% of the problems, and it became its own new benchmark. The Utopia 2022 solves all the picadillos or quirks that you had with the Utopia. And so, like, if you need a reference, absolute fast, correct timbral, the new Utopia is worth every dime that they charge you for it.
It's pretty special. That's the only other headphone I've got here. The Expanse this morning, because you saw me, I was like rushing before this place packed in, and the Utopia. And I listened to the Utopia 2022 on the Kenzie Ovation.
Yep.
I listened to it on a TT2 with M scaler, and I listened on a Rebel amp. It sounded good on all of them, and I was super impressed. It almost seems like they've taken that and made it a little bit less upper mids, maybe just a touch, and more bass. It just sounds more musical and smoother sound while still giving you like all that detail. So I need more time with it, but that and the Expanse is what I'm really more curious to spend some more time with.
And I mean, one of the ones that we had in big quantities, and I'm still just blown away by, is the LCD5.
Yes, still a great headphone.
It's their finest work. The MM500 is the accessible version of that,
right.
But the fit and finish and quality, the sophistication, how very special the sound is hidden by just how smooth, buttery smooth.
Well,
that
especially
LCD is.
with your amps, there's a special combination between Amps&Sound amps and the LCD5. Like, they're like made for each other.
Well, I would just also know, like, so much of it goes into like holding these things.
Yeah,
like,
they're beautiful.
I mean, like, I like wood. Like, I like wood, and Zach has shown us what wood can be turned into as far as art, you know?
Yep.
And tuning. Like, how many people love the Blackwoods?
Yeah. Beautiful.
He understands density of wood changes tonal responses. Zach is a smart guy when it comes to that. But then you come to the LCDs, where the LCDs originally, I had twos that were bamboo.
Right. Yep.
Like everybody.
Yep.
And now you have the fives that are
acetate. Yeah.
Acetate, but that are 1/4 the weight.
420 grams. Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, and you feel them. There's no flex. You don't feel any give in them. They don't feel constructed as much as they feel like sort of born of their, like, I can't figure out how they built that thing.
It's pretty impressive. They're pretty damn good headphones. Yeah, I mean, I still have them as a reference. I really like the Meze Elite too, because the Meze Elite to me is a little more laid back than the LCD5 and the upper mids, and I can find that I can listen to it for longer periods of time.
Sure.
However, if I take the LCD5 and I put it with tube amps, that changes everything.
Well, so, and like I'm an Abyss fan for sure. Like, I love the Abyss sound. I always think I'm going to die of a electric. They make me feel like a
yeah,
monster.
they're massive, yeah.
Right, but like the Mezes and the Abysses do some cool stuff with the ear cups, that they're magnetic and you can clock them to your ear.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
You know, the level of thinking about making this individual to you and your body to get the best sound, you know, that all of these companies have gone through is so incredible to me.
Yeah,
They're not just slapping a driver into a plastic enclosure and telling you to buy it.
No, there's so much technology. I mean, you look at the technology in the Expanse. You look at the upgrades they made to the Utopia with the voice coil and changing some things around, and also the design, that smashed carbon fiber. Like, that's really pretty. Like, I mean, there's some real money being spent in development of these new headphones. And I mean, Meze always is cutting edge technology.
100%.
Even their 109 Pro, it comes in for under $1,000. We were with them yesterday, and they made some huge upgrades. That's not just and he made it clear to say that it's not just an upgrade to the 99 Classics. This is a completely different headphone, 100% soup to nuts, all new. So I love to see that people are continuing to, you know, push the technology forward, because it gives us as both consumers and hobbyists a chance to really appreciate that.
Well, and it's such an interesting juxtaposition. Like, I love really high-end DACs. I love really high-end headphones.
Right.
And I love really simple, antiquated amplifiers.
Right. Yeah. Simplicity is sometimes best.
Well, you know, what I tell people is that we hide our sophistication, we hide our technology in like our transformers, so, you know, so that it hides in plain sight.
Right.
But ultimately, we try for that simple. Amplifiers are a tricky thing because you want them to age well.
Right.
And I think, truthfully, amplifiers and DACs are the hardest to age well.
Sure.
Headphones age pretty well.
Usually, yeah. If you take care of them, they'll be fine. Yeah.
Well, but a sonic signature from 10 years ago is still a very
I see what you're
compelling
saying.
animal.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at an amplifier from 10 years ago,
So much has changed. Yeah.
You know, finding something that's still compelling can be hard.
Yeah.
And so we try to push back to things, to touch points that go beyond fads.
Right.
But yeah, no, you know, the sheer technology in the headphones. This show, more than anything else, was about headphones this year.
Really was. I mean, this whole room is packed. So switch one more gears, and then we'll check for questions. Hey, what's up, Grumpy Goose? How are you, buddy? And then we'll wrap up, because we got to get ready for the next stream. But and I know you got to go back to your table, because I mean, Kenzie can only sell so many Nautiluses by herself.
If she, I mean, you know, her allowance is $5 a week.
It's gonna go up. She's getting a raise. She sells Nautilus.
But she has an Ovation to sell that. She's like, no, this is my amp.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not selling that.
She's pushing the Ovation.
That's awesome. So how do you? Okay, switching to this gear as a vendor at CanJam. I talked with Ethan yesterday. We're going to talk to Jude today. Like, to me, you know, as a vendor, but I'm more of in the behind the scenes production and media type role. But it looks like they've done a darn good job for all the vendors to set up this space and create a good environment with the hotel and everything. So how do you feel it's been for you at CanJam 2022 SoCal?
I mean, this is our home show, so this is always a real special space. I am so pleased to see the sense of community that's been present.
Right.
You know, they made a real effort to give space to the community members to sit and talk. Yep. Which I thought was really important.
Absolutely, it's a big part of it.
And they also found a way to find space. If you were a vendor, and you know, whatever your budget was, they found space for you. And so at some levels, we feel like we're popping out at the seams.
Right, sure.
But that's kind of special because it means that there are more. There's more touch points. So somebody who comes here can find something that fits them, whether it's IEMs or that it's a DAP or that it's an amp or that it's a super big headphone. That there's a vendor that had a message for them to come see, and then they had space that they could come talk.
Right.
The only thing I always say about the hotels or like these kind of situations is like finding food. My wife was kind enough to bring me Subway.
It's hard, yeah.
But I had a customer who was super sweet yesterday and bought me a sandwich at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Getting food in is its own unique challenge.
It is, yeah, especially with the parking lot and everything else. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But truthfully, we need more space, and that is such a wonderful problem to have.
If it grows like this, they're going to need more of a showroom. Like I think Ethan said, this is the biggest CanJam in history. Especially yesterday was wild. So if you're still contemplating on coming, you still have 5.5 hours of CanJam left. I believe we go till 6 tonight. So if you're thinking about coming down here, check it out and hear the Red October, the Nautilus, the Kenzie Ovation. What else you got? Yeah, Dan's new, the Expanse, the new Utopia 2022, ZMF Caldera. I mean, you still have time to do it, and plenty of time. And honestly, it's not quite as noisy in here today as it was yesterday if you're picking that up from the audio, so you can actually probably have a better listening experience. Now, I don't know if it'll stay that way all day. People might be hungover or whatever because they rocked out last night, so they might be showing up late. But right now, this is pretty good timing. So
one last thing to just be thought of. I've been to 6 CanJams, 7. SoCal is in here like a 10,000-pound gorilla.
I know. It's wild.
I mean, but it's so lovely. Like Odyssey's here like a 10,000-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi Man. Everybody's here.
You're coming out
with such a show of force that like it's not just one product that they're promoting. They don't have all the flagship. They have the $600 headphone.
The entire line, pretty much, yeah.
Right, and they have people who can educate you on everything. And so, like, I see the value in, like, being able to actually interact at the highest level directly with the manufacturer.
Right. No.
Because the manufacturers knew that this was important and came with the right level of support.
Yeah, you got the managing director right now of Meze here, managing director. Okay, started the company with Antonio. He's here. You've got several of the designers for SoCal here. I mean, you've got the builder.
You have the engineers for DCS.
Yeah, DCS.
DCS's DAC engineers are here.
You got Dan Clark. You got Rob Watts from Cord. I mean, you've got like the makers. Justin, you got the makers in the house right now. So you get actual FaceTime with the makers, designers, engineers. And you just can't get that same type of level of conversation always online. So it's real special. But if you can't make it, that's what we're here for, and that's why we're doing this. So hopefully we can bring a little bit of CanJam to you. So with that, man, thank you, brother. I appreciate you so much for coming over. We appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned. We got Dan Clark and the brand new Expanse coming up next at 1 o'clock. So don't go anywhere. And Grumpy Goose, thank you for showing me the love. I try to stop working occasionally once in a while, but no, I don't stop working very much.
I couldn't even buy you dinner last night.
I know. I haven't been able to do anything really. It's just constant work and then the gym. I do the gym. That's when I stop working. So, but much love to all of you guys. Stay tuned.
Thanks,
Next one's 1 o'clock, and thank you again. And with that, we'll see you guys soon. Cheers.
Bye, guys.